can I suggest we have 2 sheets of paper, one as a scrapper, one as a little starting point, one as a, we're going to spend the first bit of the lesson having a warm up and having a rehearsal of painting that wall. We'll try that wall. And then the second one will combine all the elements and we'll do a finished piece. So 2 sheets of paper today, I think, for me anyway.
Watercolour or?
Well, yeah, I'm going watercolour. I'm going to push the boat out. So I'm going to use 2 sheets of nice watercolour paper. But to start off with...
No, that's not, no, don't do that. No. Talking to myself.
Are you talking to yourself, Janet?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. No need to mute me.
Right. What I think we should do is just have a little, draw yourself, actually, I'm not going to ruin a waste a sheet of nice Archer's watercolour for this little exercise. I'm just going to use a bit of scrap paper just to do some thumbnails. Because what I thought we'd do is we'd utilise, I want to incorporate this little stone barn in here. I want to incorporate that thing in there as well. But I also want to incorporate these rolling hills and this moorland. So what I thought we'd do, I want to get a wall in the foreground because there's a lot of nice detail in that. So I'm kind of thinking along those lines there. I want to get this in. This is just a very kind of scratchy, scrappy thumbnail because I'm trying to figure out where I want my hills. I think, you know, we want to kind of this kind of business in the background because I want to try and utilize this aerial perspective. Look how pale that little distant hill over there is compared to these closer ones. That's called aerial perspective. That's where you can't see the color and the detail because of the haze, because of the particles in the air. That's aerial perspective. Things in the distance seem bluer and paler. So I think I want to try and maybe incorporate a series of hills like this, incorporating some perspective there. And I want to describe what's going on these hills with hedges and shrubland and forests and clumps of trees and what have you, like so. But then I want to get this barn in here as well. So I'm just feeling my way. I mean, bear with me. I'm not expecting you to follow along with this, but I'm just visualizing what I want to show in here. So I'm going to wall along there, and then I think it'd be rather nice around about here, utilizing the kind of rule of thirds to get that barn in there with all the walls attached to it and the stuff going on. So I'm thinking, I kind of like my finished picture to be something like that. We've got this wall, we've got the barn, and then we've got distance, and then this little patch of foreground here. It'd be nice to get a few bits of detail. Can you remember, what was it we did? We did Clavel Tower, and we did that little bit of foreground patch of grass. It was really nice because we put a few close-up scratches and weeds and flower heads and seed heads and what have you in the foreground there. So what I want to create here is quite a close-up foreground, a nice middle ground with some interest in it, i.e. the barn, and then some distance. So we've got a full range of depth going on here. And I think as well, looking at this barn, you know, in terms of perspective, I think the horizon line, if there was a horizon line, you could see it to be around about there. So just keep in mind, I'm keeping this barn kind of on eye level. So in terms of perspective, if there was a vanishing point, it would be there. So my lines are going down there. So that's me just thinking through a nice little thumbnail sketch like that. It's always worth just taking 5 minutes just to visualize something and think, okay, that's kind of where I want to be with that. Putting that aside, grab sheet number 1. We're going to have a crack at painting this dry stone wall. So I'm going to use this as a little practice pad, and I'm going to use it for mixing my colours on. And if you want to be frugal, because we're not going to fill this up, in fact, I'll be frugal as well. I only want about half of this. So I'm going to half this and save the other half for another day. Actually, there's something nice about working on a smaller sheet of this arches. It's like you concentrate more on the quality of the paint and what have you. I'm growing to like working small. Right, let's have a crack at this dry stone wall. What I want to do here is paint it in a kind of neutral tone of grey. So I want to make a grey, and this is a good rule of thumb. If you want to make a neutral, use a blue and a brown. It's very often a good idea to use ultramarine blue and burnt umber. Burnt sienna's a more ginger version of burnt umber. So looking at this is my ultramarine blue here. This is your warm blue. This is this one that I'm almost completely out of. So to make a grey, I'm just starting a puddle of this ultramarine blue like this. And make a good old, I'd say half thimbleful. It's always tricky to quantify small amounts of liquid. Drop, thimble, any other suggestions that I can use to quantify small amounts of liquid? Half a thimble.
About that much.
About that much. Yeah. That's probably the best way of doing it.
Blob.
A blob. Yeah, a droplet. So start off with a nice wash of blue, and then got to get the old kitchen roll out. Rinse that off and in with the brown. Now, I was saying burnt umber, which is kind of down here or here. It's probably one of these two here. These are more like the burnt siennas, the more gingery red browns. I don't think I've got a traditional burnt umber in here. It's somewhere between the two. So I'm going to come in with this guy here and see what this produces. See what it goes. I've given my paints a squirt, so they've all woken up. And I'm going to put a bit of this into here. Oh, before I do that, let me just kind of show you where we are in terms of color. So that's my ultramarine, and this is my kind of burnt umber. Probably a little bit grey, probably a little bit flat, probably a little bit not very brown. This is what I mean by my, if I were to look at my burnt sienna, and this isn't burnt sienna, this is a bit too red for burnt sienna. This is a bit more gingery. So those are the two options of brown that I'm after. I'm actually after something in between the two, which I don't have. So I might have to mix them a little bit, we'll see. So anyway, I've got my puddle of blue, and I'm going to start adding this to it and see where it takes me. And it immediately starts to neutralize that blue look. I've gone right down into a kind of slaty, cool grey already, which is rather nice. So adding this, I think this is more of a kind of sepia. So now I've got, having added quite a splurge of my dull brown to that blue, I'm kind of now there, look, and that's like a steel grey, isn't it? So that's still too much blue in there. And I'm struggling to warm it up with this brown because there's not enough red in this brown. I'm struggling to make this brown do what I want it to do, which is really warm this grey up. So I'm thinking I might have to come in and add a bit of this one. Because I don't have a nice mid-ordinary brown, I'm going to have to warm it up, cheat a little bit and add a bit of that and see where that takes me. And that has taken me there, which is better, but still, it's still a bit too cold for what I'm after. So I'm going to come in with a bit more of that.
Oh, off you get.
What's wrong? What are you doing? You put your brush in your tea. There, that's looking more like it. So that's added a nice old dollop of brown. That's really warmed it up, I think. So I am now here. Now that's looking more like the stone colour that I'm after. So are you all with me? Have you all achieved some kind of suitable colour to start painting this wall?
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how we've kind of worked our way along, and it's good to be able to control your colours like this. And we've got a decent half thimble full, have we? Got plenty. Right. What we're going to do is we're just going to do one. We're not going to bother drawing this. We can maybe on our finished one go in and do some pencil work on our landscape, but we're just going to do work on this in terms of flat colour. And what we're going to do is we're just going to lay down and start painting the shape of this wall like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to glaze over this, so we are laying down just a flat wash, not just solid. We're going to leave a few flecks of white showing through here and there, but we're just going to make our wall like this, kind of loosely following the shape, not being a slave to it, but trying to make it resemble the outline, if you know what I mean. And then down at the bottom, you know, we can imply some vegetation, some kind of grasses. And it's nice, isn't it? Just crack on and just paint like this without the faff of drawing. Suddenly you're in a wall place already. It's very quick and it's very satisfying to just paint, as opposed to drawing first.
Am I the only one that ran out of paint?
No, you will not be the only one who runs out of paint, because it's a very, very common mistake. I mean, you don't want to run out of paint most of the time, because for two reasons. Because when you remake the paint, it'll inevitably be a different colour, because you
It is.
of course it is. It's going to be a completely different colour, so you're going to have your wall changing colour halfway through. And then the second reason is, by the time you finish mixing your paint, you come back, the first layer's probably dried, and so you're going to have a bit of a tide mark. You're going to have a drying mark where you stopped 2 minutes ago and then started again. So try not to run out of paint. But it's yeah, everybody does it. I do it all the time. It's annoying. But yeah, don't be frugal with your paint. Make plenty.
I thought I'd mixed enough, but
yeah. Right, now the other major colour that we're going to be looking at is a nice green for these hills. And I'm not going to use a green. I'm going to make a green. And I think a nice green to use is a mixture of cadmium yellow and Prussian blue, which is this one. This kind of tends to make a nice meadowy grass green that isn't too zingy and it isn't too dull. So,
what sort of blue is the Prussian blue if we haven't got it?
It's a cool blue.
Okay.
It's anything except ultramarine.
Okay.
See, my blues here, that's my Prussian blue. I mean, it's tricky to see. It's a subtle difference, but it does make a difference. That's my ultramarine. That's my Prussian blue, which is cooler. I mean, it's hard to understand, but there's red inside this ultramarine. There's not so much red in here. This is my cool blue. This is my warm blue. Cool Prussian blue. And then I've got a cerulean blue, which is quite a nice summery sky blue. And then I've got what's that? It's a cyan, or no, more like a turquoise. This actually looks different on my screen than it does in real life. This is much greener. For some reason, me looking at it on the screen, it looks pale blue, but it's not.
It's not that phthalo blue.
Phthalo blue, no. I don't know what phthalo blue is. Phthalo blue is one of those new chemical blues, like quinacridones. Quinacridones and phthalos, they're modern pigments.
I'll go and get some Prussian. I've got some somewhere.
Yeah. But, it's all subjective. You can make so long as it's, I mean, look at these greens here, aren't really green at all. They're well, I don't know what they are. They're almost like a khaki. But, it's all subjective. Anyway, to start off with, get a little bit of your cadmium yellow going. If I were to use my lemon yellow, which is this one, my greens will be far more acidic and lime-like. So I'm using this one, this warm yellow, because this is going to give me a far more organic feeling foliage. So make a good, I think, if we're going to cover a sheet of A4, well, the best part of a sheet of A4 with this green, you need, I'd say, push the boat out and make a thimble full. If you're making a green, always start with your yellow, because you need kind of 9 parts yellow to 1 part blue. So you always start off with a nice puddle of yellow and gently and slowly add your blue to it, because it'll very quickly overpower the yellow, the blue will. Try not to contaminate it. I've got a little rogue streak of paint down the edge here, which is invading my yellow. All right, nice puddle of yellow. I'm going to add a little bit of my Prussian blue to it. And I put the slightest hint in there, and it's already turning it green. That's this one, isn't it? So, our little wall sample here, look, that's a very, very kind of yellowy green. And I'm just going to start experimenting with this green. This is going to be the green that's going to be behind the wall. So I'm actually starting to put it in behind my wall. And what I'm doing, I'm leaving a little highlight along the edge of the wall. This is a very, very kind of yellow grass, but I've done that intentionally because I'm going to excite it a little bit by, and I should have done this to start off with, a little puddle of blue. I'm going to kind of add specks and spots of blue in it to give this ground a little bit more excitement. You see, instead of it just being a flat green, it's going to be an exciting colour-filled green. So what I'm doing is I'm just working out what it's going to look like. I mean, this actually looks a little bit limey to me, almost a little dry differently. So what I'm doing here, I'm experimenting with how I want my wall to look, and I'm experimenting with the colour of the grass behind. So I'm building up my little palette here, getting ready to rumble with it. I'm just having a play, I'm just having a feel at this. I'm just sucking up some of this green to see. I mean, I'm looking at these values down here in this grass, and I'm thinking, you know, it might be nice just when this is down, just to pull some of that up with my thirsty brush. And see, look, I can create all kinds of different values and different qualities. So instead of just having the grass behind this flat green, I've suddenly got something with a bit of interest in it. If you can ignore all the little bits of eraser rubber speckling around there. Yeah, can you see how there's a variety in the quality of the green in terms of value? It's darker, lighter, yellower, bluer. I can even put a fingerprint in if I want, but I don't really. So this is a nice little warm-up exercise that's just enabling me to see what my potential is. See what the potential for mark making is. Hey, we can do a bit of spatting as well if we want, if you're in that kind of mood. Although I'm not sure that that's going to be appropriate. But I'm starting to visualize now, you know, that my wall and the grass beyond it. So I'm hoping now, depending on the environment you're working in, that your dry stone wall's probably dry now. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is come back to the grey, which I'm hoping you've still got plenty of. Mm-hmm. Well, if not plenty, some. And I'm adding a bit more pigment to mine. I want to warm it up with this kind of, it's not really burnt sienna, it's more like a Indian red or something, but I'm going to throw a bit more of that in there and just make this wash a little bit stronger and a little bit warmer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glaze over this wall now with a second layer of paint. And I'm going to start to introduce shadows. So I'm kind of looking at the shapes that are being made here. This actually could do with being a little bit stronger. But what's important to do is to soften off some of these edges. So I'm washing my brush and I'm taking the excess moisture out. And then on just some of these lines, I'm just softening off the edge like that. So I have got a combination of hard and soft edges. And that just gives it a bit more interest. This is a bit of a pale wash. See, this is why it's nice to experiment. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to boost this up a bit. I'm going to give it, I've gone a bit brown, so I'm going to put a bit more blue in there. Bring back a little bit of ultramarine. All of that, just to make this pigment a bit darker. And then I'm going to, that's a bit better. And then I'm just going to go around and just pick out shadow areas like this. Kind of looking at the shapes that these blocks of stone are making. And there's a lot of kind of triangular stuff going on. But they all pretty much kind of join up as well.
And are you going to soften the edge of every one of those?
No,
Martin?
no, not at all. I'm softening off only a few of the edges, like there. I'm going to keep it varied.
Okay.
See, at the moment, that looks like two sharp edges.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dry that off, and I'm maybe just going to soften the bottom one. And now I've got a sharp edge and a soft edge. Can you see? I've just softened that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it just gives it a bit more interest. I can try softening the top edge. And that then means that that stone rolls round. It kind of rolls with a curve instead of turning with a sharp angle. That stone's obviously got a sharp edge on the bottom, whereas this stone's rounder. Let me try and show you that again. So, for example, if I were to say, okay, let's make a big old stone here. See, that at the moment it's like a brick. It's like a sharp-edged brick. But if I wanted to just soften that bottom edge, I'd wash my brush, dry it off a little bit, and then it's tricky to paint in midair, but just do that, and then suddenly that stone's round. Can you see?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm assuming that the light is coming from overhead. So yeah, it's a combination of soft and hard edges. And also it's essential, you just try and keep it all very random. You don't want any repeats. You don't want any repeat patterns really. You just want it to be totally random. It looks quite good, it looks quite effective. Don't do these stones too small as well. You can sometimes end up the kind of pebble dash wall if you're not careful.
I know you weren't going to ask it.
How's it going? Are you getting the hang of it?
Oh, completely wrong, Martin.
What's wrong? What's wrong with it?
Well, I think I made it too dark.
Yeah, I
Shall I-
did.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've just
Oh,
gone
yeah. You
so it
have
looks
gone.
like Pebble Dash. But
You
now
have.
I realise how I've gone wrong.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
Now I can see the shadowing. I can
Yeah.
see the purpose of having larger stones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a quick, while we're just
Have a little-
fiddling, for
Yeah.
5 minutes, just do a quick bash across the bottom. And having said that,
I'm doing that actually.
having said that, you do need to really let it dry to glaze over. You can't do this second wash over the top of the first one until the first one's dry.
What I'm doing, because mine's too dark to start with, is I'm taking some of it off. Like,
Yeah, good idea. Why not? In fact, that's
Mine's
a good
too
point.
light.
Isn't it a good idea to have a little bit of a rehearsal first?
Yeah.
So what you might like to be able to do is, if you just watch this, depending on the quality of your paint and the quality of your paper, you might be able to lift a bit off. So, for example, if I've got this stone here and I want to give it a bit of a highlight, I might be able to do this, before, and give it a bit of a scrub like that, and then give it a dab. And look, you've suddenly lifted off a bit of tone there, which makes it even more three-dimensional. And, I'll show you again down here. Just with clean water, give it a bit of a scrub, and then give it a dab. And you can lift pigment off to create a highlight and more form. Because it's very often about taking paint off. But it is, it's very natural to, for some reason, to do these stones too small.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But
Mine are gonna have very big boulders next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
That combination of soft and hard edges makes it more visually exciting as well. So don't forget to soften off just a few of your edges, not all of them. Hang on, I'll be right back. I'm going to show you my new toy I've got. Hang on.
Oh, good. Show and tell. We like that. We like that.
Are you a teacher?
Yeah, I have been. Warm, wasn't me? Must be warm.
Hey, right. Check
What's it
this
do?
out, everybody.
Come
This
on.
is my new gizmo. It's not a lightsaber. It's a little blowtorch.
Ooh.
Oh,
It's really good if you're as impatient as I am for
oh.
drying off your paintings. So look, can you see the little blue flame?
Oh.
I think it's like a chef's blowtorch for
I was
making
going to say,
creme
creme brulee.
brulees.
Creme
Yeah,
brulee.
What else?
but it's absolutely brilliant for drying off your watercolors,
Scorching your paper.
for setting fire to the house and stuff. Yeah.
What's it really for?
Sorry.
What's it
What-
really for, Martin?
This is really what I'm using it for, to dry this off.
But is that what you bought? Is that what it's sold as?
No, it's just sold as a mini blowtorch.
You got it from a cookery shop.
I
feel
got it
like it's
off.
clever, but I don't know why. I think it's lovely.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely
like
brilliant. Well, I used to use an old lighter with a flame to dry it off and just to hurry things along, but this is far
You've got that
simpler.
house.
Huh? I'm still here.
I think you burnt it down.
You may scoff, all of you, but
No, I think this is good. I like this. I just wanted.
Yeah, I want one.
do you know what? I think it was £11 off Amazon.
All right.
You can't go wrong.
You like
But anyway,
candles
you
with
see
it?
now, just a quick whiff over like that. Obviously, yeah, you can set fire to your paper if you're not careful. You know, and hold it too close and for too long, and it'll start
Don't
to
do it, don't do
scorch
it.
like that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to self-combust. You're all right.
Mm.
It just helps to scoot things along. You see now, I'm ready to do my third pass on here, where you're all still waiting for your pictures to dry.
Hmm. So what do we call that? If we want to order
But
one?
this, I don't
Yes.
know.
Getting one up on everyone.
It's
Yeah.
called a mini blowtorch, I think.
Mini blowtorch. Right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Good for pizzas.
Well, it'd take you a while to cook a pizza with one of those.
Oh, I didn't know. If you've done it in the microwave and then you do that, they'll never know.
Oh, well, I suppose so. Yeah, I suppose that's a good
I
point.
saw that in a restaurant, somebody using a big blowtorch to do that.
What? Cook in a microwave and finish with a blowtorch?
Yeah, I couldn't
Ooh.
believe what I was seeing.
No.
Yeah.
It was a very healthy vegan restaurant.
Well, yeah. Would you trust a vegan? Of course
Can
you
you
would.
get gas
Of course you
sausages
would.
for it?
Just in case.
They're the new righteous ones, aren't they, vegan?
Oh, what it is to be woke.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I'm making a little bit of another strong grey here. So I'm straight into my ultramarine. And then I'm kind of straight into my brown. And I'm making a really nice, quite strong pokey mix. Pokey, I mean strong. Because this is just for the deeper shadows. I've kind of got form, and it's all kind of happening quite nicely now there. But I just want to put in some deeper shadows, just little spots of darkness like this. And again, I still want to soften off the occasional edge, but leave other edges a little softer, harder. So having done that, as usual, just wash the brush off, take most of the moisture out. You don't want to be delivering big old blobs of water to your paper, just soften off a few edges here and there. Bet you all wish you got a blowtorch now, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Wait until we're doing this face to face. We'll all be borrowing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I'm going to
it'd
have a
be good
word
for-
with Heidi later on. We look like we might be firing up some classes again soon.
Oh, good.
If you're interested, you'll all hear about it.
You could use that for when you're using nylon rope and
That sounds
Sealing it.
dangerous.
sealing the ends of nylon rope.
Yeah, yeah. My dad
Don't
always
worry.
used to, when he trimmed his shoelaces down, he just used to do that with the end of his
There you go.
shoelaces to stop them fraying. Clever bugger. So, you know, we don't want to spend too much time doing this. This is just a little fact-finding exercise just to see how we make everything look fabulous. So hopefully you will have made some progress on your dry stone wall and you'll be in a better place to paint one than you would have been if you'd have gone in cold. And then, of course, you know, when we come to do our foreground, because we've created this motif of grass or whatever it is at the front there, it really is simply a case of coming in and getting our... Why is that got a funny colour? It's too yellow, maybe. And as I say, when we come in to do our thing at the front, you know, our little foreground patch of meadow here, I recommend getting out the old scratchy sticks and a trusty little piece of credit card. And I'd like to maybe start to employ some of these techniques again. I'm starting to scratch and starting to make a few interesting marks in the paint. Because it's so close here, you start to see individual flowers, and we can not only make marks with our scratchy things, you know, we can maybe put a bit of red in there here as well and start to... That's the kind of look I'm after for the foreground. You see, just make it a little bit random and a little bit interesting. And look how interesting, look at that. I've just scratched those. That's just a scratch with the corner of the credit card. And because it's broken the surface of the paper and created a few little scratch marks in there, the paint's flooded in and created those lovely marks. And of course you couldn't paint that, you could only scratch that. And these as well, look, that's just a few little sideways movements with that. And it's spread it's just spread the pigment apart. And you've suddenly got, I don't know, a little patch of seed heads and some whatever. You get the picture. You get the picture. So I think that'd be a nice thing to do in the foreground. And then we've got this wall in the background, and then everything beyond becomes a little bit more vague. Okay. All right. Are we ready to
Rock.
crack on, as they say on Love Island?
Nobody
That's a
knows.
confession. Isn't
Not that
it?
I ever watched it.
No.
No.
I just heard they say, let's crack on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did watch that, I have to confess. Not last year, I think it was the year before or 3 years ago. I got completely hooked on it.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I confess.
You
Don't
must
worry, Mike,
resist.
won't tell anybody.
Don't tell a soul.
No, your reputation would be gone.
Yeah. Right.
A man that watched Love Island. Oh dear.
If you tried it, you'd love it, Mike. Mind you, I don't know. It went off after that one. I couldn't get into the next one. You do kind of connect with the people though, and you get sucked in. It's a very weird kind of petri dish of psychology and emotions.
I'd be careful with that program about using the phrase "stuck in." If I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
I think the whole premise is
Trapped,
very
yeah.
flawed.
Stop digging.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, it's probably banned now, isn't it? It's all, everybody's too fragile to do that thing, sort of thing. Right, here we go. I have got my little rehearsal there. I've got my little thumbnail here. I could dive straight in and just start painting, but is that too scary? Or shall we ease into it with a little bit of a sketch first? Would be more
Can
comfortable.
I just throw a spanner in the works? The bit
Go on.
I like best, sorry, I should have asked if it was right to throw a spanner in the works, is the top picture with the little trees along the top. I just love that bit.
Yeah, they're like little
Oh, yeah.
skeletons.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, you mean you want to put the trees in?
Yeah, I love them. I wouldn't mind just doing them, but then I don't want to.
Feel free. Feel free, Jack. You get in there and
Martin, I didn't do a thumbnail because I watched you
No,
do
I
yours.
That's
didn't.
all right. It's all right. No, you didn't have to. I just did that. What I'm trying to say is we're not really copying these photographs per se.
No.
We're using the kind of forms and the structures and the things that we can see defining these hills to create our own little scenario. It's easy. It's just, 1, 2, and a very distant third set of planes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're tiptoeing outside of our comfort zones, but that's a good thing because you don't just want to copy photographs.
Well, I've
do you?
always wanted to be able to draw those things on the horizon. Those little those leafless trees.
Right. I'd be careful there, though, Janet,
Yeah.
because they are on the horizon. You don't want to start to try and do every little branch and every
No,
little
what
bough.
I would rather, I like is just to have them.
All right. Oh, what do you mean? Nothing else?
Yeah.
That's a different class.
Sorry.
But you know what? We can probably. Shall we put a few in there? Shall we put?
Could you just show me how you would do those?
Well, I don't know. I've never done them, but we'll have a go. All right. We'll put a few in on the right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Andy. Thank you for sharing.
That's all right.
That was nice. All right. I like the way you've done those trees. And we can maybe utilize a little bit of that technique for our trees. Let's try and steal his style. Right. I think it'd be nice. I'm just going to loosely and faintly start. I might do do you know what? I'm overthinking this. I can't really explain what I'm thinking I'm going to be doing. Let's just start. So let's just, if you want to get your pencils out, I'm just going to start fleshing out what I think is going to be nice. My wall is going to zoom down in perspective like that. Instead of going straight across like that, I'm going to try and shrink it down into the distance. It's a bit ambitious, but you know what? Let's just try it anyway. So I've got stones. This is my wall. Obviously, it's going to get smaller as it disappears. So on and so forth. I'm kind of channeling this little bit here. So just over the wall, I'm now thinking, all right, let's pinch a bit of that. I've got the old barn here. Actually, if I put my barn here, I'm just wondering whether or not that's going to be too. I want to be looking down on that. This is going to work. Am I being a bit ambitious? Let's just loosely. Let's whack that in there. And then I've got more walls coming off there. This is very loose and this is very free form. So don't get hung up on things being in the right place, things being in the wrong place. Look how scrappy my lines are. This is going to be a very loose landscape. Just remember what we saw, what Mandy's just shown us and how scratchy and loose that was. It was rather lovely because of that. So now what's going on? Ooh. Hang on. I'll put my hand in some paint somewhere. I'm just wondering whether or not this is going to work. I'm looking at my wall going off up there. I think that one maybe needs to go off up there. And I think possibly the idea of it zooming away into perspective was a little bit misleading. So anyway, I'm going to let that evolve later on. That's going to go down there. That is another wall that is going to go over there like that. I'm going to take this light. I'm going to try and nick the light on this barn, because that barn is casting a shadow behind there. And I think that is really quite important, because that means that this is the lightest part of the painting. This is going to be a dark end. And this means that this top edge of this wall is going to be lit, but this main flank of wall is going to be quite dark. It's going to be as dark as this end gable on this barn. All right, so that's where we are with that. It's all a bit of a mishmash, but it'll all come together. And as well, you know, you let your imagination fill in the gaps, because we're now what? It's now 12 o'clock-ish. We're going to crack on and we're going to smash this very quickly and confidently now. We've got this done. We've got our thumbnail. We're going to do this quickly. So these are just preliminary little guidelines. Right. So I'm going to say this hill comes all the way down. I think it's going to come, this is going to be kind of the main, that's going to come down there like that. Then I've got a second hill that comes off over there. And then I'm going to have a very distant little peak over there, which is, you know, really pale. Like so. And then we've got to get Janet's trees in over here somewhere.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, and that's it. That's, you know, I'm out on moors already, aren't you, Mandy?
On ilky more about
Hey?
that.
Bayek. And, you know, I think that's enough to crack on with.
Which way's the all front wall going to go?
It's going to go across there like that.
Okay.
It's pretty much, it's kind of a bit like that, but can you see that one?
Yep.
It's kind of going along there like that, I think. I'm going to try and be quite faithful to this little portion here. So my barn is going to have a secondary wall coming down there like that, which turns like a little walled garden thing there. So you've got a couple of windows in there. There's a doorway behind. Okay, are we all kind of there? Are we there yet? You got your little, are we all kind of fleshed out? It's a good time to just sit back and think, okay, should that hill be a bit higher? Am I happy with the composition? Personally, I think I'm looking a little bit flat along there. I'm tempted to either go higher there or higher there. I think maybe higher here is probably better. Just to, oh no, that's too mountainous. Not like that, is it, Mandy? It's rolling.
Rolling.
We don't do mountains. All right, I'll leave it rolling. Okay, let's get painting, eh? you got everything in place, you're quite happy with everything where it is. This wall's a bit high. But as you can see, I'm very scrappy and scratchy in here, but I'm going to try and keep that vibe going throughout. That needs to be more rolling than scratchy. Isn't that interesting? That little tentative line I did was annoying me, and then I just whacked in 3 arcs, and suddenly you can feel the breeze. Right. I mean, step 1, let's make some of that dry stone wall grey. Try not to run out.
I'm desperately trying to mix enough of it.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a bucket full.
Yeah.
And I haven't. Because I never know how much water to put in.
Yeah. We're from a frugal generation. I think that's our trouble. But, you know.
It's just basic incompetence on my side.
That's my last skerrick of painting here. Now, is that painting of yours, Mandy, is it an acrylic or an oil painting?
It's it was done by a man and wife, and she goes in and does all the base coats,
Yeah.
and then he goes in and puts all the detail, and then she tells him when to step away.
She tells him he's ruined it.
Yeah, like step away from the painting. They were a lovely couple.
Ah,
Met them at the Affordable Art Fair.
oh, lovely. That's quite an unusual way to work, isn't it?
Yeah, and it depicts exactly part of the Yorkshire Dales that I walk. I go walking most years with my girlfriends, and
Yeah.
actually did that walk and took 10 minutes just to enjoy that view.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, yeah. So my husband bought it for my 30th wedding anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My brown that I'm mixing is going very green. How can I change?
Is it?
Yeah.
You need to get more red in then. If you want to offset the green, put its complementary colour in.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like your brown is too yellow and doesn't have enough red in it. So yeah, either push in, find, I don't know what your paint palette's like. You can just gently start adding red and that'll take that green out.
Thank you.
So at the moment I'm here with this and I've got quite a very kind of steel cold grey. I need to warm mine up as well. So I'm coming in with mine. It's like an Indian red. That's that's too cold for a wall. I want to be more like this. If it's
better to have a greeny tinge, I would have thought.
well, absolutely, yeah, true. This is quite green, isn't it? There's a lot of greens going on in here.
Yeah, if it's an old wall, it would have all sorts on it.
Moss and lichen. Is it lichen
Yeah.
or lichen?
Oh, I don't know.
Or is that opening a can of worms? Right.
Mine's a bit too brown.
Is it?
What do I need? A bit more blue?
Yeah, yeah. He's testing it on a little patch of
Yeah.
paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not critical. I wouldn't go too blue. It's nice to have a little bit of warmth in because it's a nice contrast against the green. You don't want everything looking too cool.
Yeah.
See, I'd veer towards brown grey instead of blue grey.
Yeah.
How are you?
Always difficult, isn't it?
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Oh my God, it's a nightmare.
Right, I'm going in.
Okay.
I'm going to start, because we're building this wall up with glazes. This is my first port of call, getting that first glaze down. Just looking at this barn. I think I might leave this facing wall almost white because it is so pale. The light's hitting it full on, isn't it? It's probably one of the very, very few. Yeah, I might do that. I might leave that wall white.
It's almost a sandy colour, isn't it?
It is, it is. But in terms of value, it's the lightest part of the painting, of the picture. And I think in that respect, you need a bit of white. You don't. I don't like to cover the whole paper with paint. It's nice to leave a bit of white here and there. And in that respect, I'm just thinking about this wall down here as well, which is equally white. I'm thinking that need to kind of flag that up and make sure that stays white as well. And by doing that, it will create form. It'll describe kind of stuff in space, if you know what I mean. So I've got a white wall coming down there, and then as it turns around to go up to the house, it suddenly goes darker. It goes to the same value as this here. Right, I'm going in. And I'm going to start off with that first pass of the wall. And it's a bit dark. And so I'm looking at the shapes on the top of this wall. I'm going to leave some light tops as well. You know, the tops of the stone, the light's going to be hitting the top of the stone. So I've just dabbed off a little bit of stonework there and it looks quite nice. I rather like that. So actually, this is a nice tool for creating planes of stone and light. So there, that coming across there like so. I have to say, this is a voyage of discovery. I'm kind of going a little bit off piste here, but it's always nice to try something slightly new, isn't it? Oh, and it's also good to get this kind of grass motif down the front as well. It's quite important. And then as things disappear into the distance, they become a bit more vague. The stones and the shapes get smaller, obviously. And the suggestions of the grass get less obvious. But do it quickly as well. You know, this first pass, we're not obsessing about shapes of stones or anything. Just try and get something in quickly. And I'm going to put the same value. I'm looking around. This same value is kind of here. And also here. Because this barn's made out of the same stuff. This is getting the same treatment. Okay. I have that there are other walls in the distance, but they're being lit, so they're not going to be as dark as this. So I'm leaving those for the time being. Really just getting those basic shapes in and those basic layers. That's my first pass on the wall. And I'm going to leave it at that, I think. Yeah. Okay. I've got a very murky jar of water. I'm just going to go and clean this before I start my green. Right, we will need a healthy dose of green now because we're going to do maybe these two prominent hills here. So what I'm going to do here is make quite a wet dilute wash so that I can get all this covered with liquid, and then I can work into it with more pigment to create, you know, this interest. You know, get a nice wet zone down first, and then just maybe charge in with, have a little bit of liquid blue or liquid green, or, you know, you can dye it. It's not forbidden to go into your paints and just pick out a little bit of green here and there, just to get a slight variation instead of a block. Instead of it looking like a screen print, just put a little bit of interest in it. you kind of don't want to run out of paint on this wash here. You're going to try and keep this nice and liquid. So now let's spend 5 minutes just getting something going in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to determine the nature and the character of these hills by we're going to put hills and we're going to put trees and bushes and little copses and blocks of bushes and whatever you on here. So this is just a background. It's going to look blank, but we don't want it to be flat blank. So and I'm painting both this hill and this hill the same green, and then I'm going to bring this hill out later on. Put the muck in here. I'm not painting the foreground though, because I'm going to do that in one hit, the last thing. And I want to be able to work on it and work down to the white as well. I don't want a background green on that foreground, so I'm leaving that white. Got a rather nice kink in that roof. It's rather characterful. You're going to need plenty of paint for this. Sally?
Well, I always think I've done enough, but I think I need a few hours on how much water to add.
So now I know I'm going to be drying off up here, so I'm just coming back and I'm revisiting this. And just maybe getting a few more. I think I've overdone the little kink in the roof a bit. It looks as though it's about to collapse, but never mind. Okay. So I just blocked that in and I'm trying to just activate it and keep it interesting by putting the odd little splatter here and there. Just giving it a little bit of character. But it's not critical. It's just nice and loose and lively. Now, I've got my paper on my board, which is on a bit of a slope, so on a gentle angle. I've got a block of wood under the far end, about this big. So it's just, and what that does, it's just sending, it's not allowing any puddles to form. And when the puddles do form, they kind of collect at the bottom like that, which is quite nice because I don't want puddles in my painting. So I can remove that just by touching that brush in there now. And that slope has enabled me to just remove all that kind of excess stuff there. So if I had left that, that would take an hour to dry. But I've now removed that, so I can crack on. I'm now, now my first wall pass on the walls finished. Sorry, dry. I'm going back to my grey and I'm adding a little bit more red. I'm going to warm my shadows up a bit. Okay. I think I've made this quite challenging by putting this wall on a bit of a perspective.
It's amazing how many similar brush strokes you make, isn't it? When
Yeah.
you look at the wall, you can see.
I know. It's a real art to try and remain random, isn't it?
Yeah.
because that's what you got to do. You got to try and not repeat. Keep your stones nice and big, everybody. Saves a lot of time and effort. See, my shadows are here are going a bit brown, but I quite like that that play between the brown and the green's good. If you're using something with this amount of green in it, needs a bit of warming up. So my grey's got more brown in it than it has got blue in it. And then as I get into the distance, I'll try and make things a little vaguer. I want to try and keep the value the same, but have a little less detail in it.
No, it wasn't for you, Billy.
Okay, so I'm trying to work out a technique of getting more vague as I
All
get
right,
down
okay.
here. So I'm almost, I put a layer of water down, so I'm kind of roughing in these stones, almost wet in wet, and then just introducing a bit of texture by dabbing it back with a bit of tissue. And I think what I need to do is make it a bit more.
That one then. Oh. No.
Now I've broken out my water-soluble pencil here because I think this stuff down here in the foreground lacks a little bit of definition. And so I'm trying to introduce a bit more definition with this. And I think that's quite nice. It's a bit Paul Wang. Very difficult to be loose, isn't it? It's very difficult to just open up and play. Right. It's only after you've been doing it for a while and you start to ease up a little bit. What I'm going to do as well, my hills are, I might have to break my blowtorch out onto my hills. I'm going to put a roof on this barn. I think what we've got here, it's like a corrugated iron roof that's gone a little bit rusty. So I'm going to use a bit of my wall grey, but I'm going to have a little bit of red standing by, just to drop in the sun, just a bit of a rust colour, just to warm it up. So I've got my dilute. I'm using a lot of water in this, so I'm just going to block in that roof there, like so. And then wash that brush out and come in with this bit of red here. And then maybe with a sharp stick, just a bit of pattern on it like that. Also worried about this front wall. I mean, it's white, but I think it's too white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of water there. And I'm just going to just create a little shadow under there. This as well. See, my shadow here is creeping down a little bit too far. So I'm just going to get my brush and just lift that back a bit. Just take that off. I don't want that coming quite as far as it is. So what I've done there, look, I've been really, really crude and quick, but it's all the better for it. I've blocked in a little of my windows, just a bit of a hint of a shadow in the windows. Excuse me. Now I'm scooting ahead. I don't want to rush you, but I'm going to press on and do my distant hills. And you know, if you're enjoying yourself doing your walls or whatever, then carry on, and maybe
Really?
you can always catch up later.
Okay.
So I don't want to rush it. But then again, I've only got a limited amount of time to do this. So where are we now? Let's have a look at, we got Janet's trees to address.
Don't mind.
That's going to be really scary, that is. So maybe we should I'm going to do a sky. Let's get a sky in, because my logic here is I'm going to pre-wet this sky area. And then I'm going to use that pre-wet paper to just put a few little blooms of tree in. That's my logic there. But I also want to get some of this. We've got trees and walls to get in here as well. So much to do, so little time to do it. All right, sky. Let's do a sky. Clean water. Okay, I'm going to pre-wet this sky now, right down to the top of the hills. I haven't forgotten this guy down here. I'm not going to pre-wet that because I want to keep those edges crisp. So I'm leaving him out, but I'm bringing the water down to here because I'm going to try and utilize this wet in wet environment to do the trees on the horizon. Right, and for my sky, I'm just going to mix up a little bit of quick cerulean blue, this pale one here. And yeah, I'm not going to overdo it. I'm not going to make it a very, very bright blue sky. I'm just going to put a hint of blue in it, like so. That is going to spread. And I'm not going to do much more than that. I mean, I think, you know, bright blue skies tend to look a bit contrived. So I'm keeping that really quite nice and subtle. And remember, when we were doing our skies, I can just add a little bit of interest by just drawing a little damp brush through it to pull out and redistribute some of the pigment like that. And that doesn't really need much more than that. Now, I'm going to leave that for a bit I'm going to let that water soak in there, and I'm going to introduce a little bit of interest in here. I'm going to try and put some of these hedgerows in, and some, maybe even some more walls. So I'm going in with my green again. I'm coming back to this green, but I'm going to add, I'm going to kind of neutralize. If you look at the color, you don't got bright green clumps of trees. You've got, I mean, I don't know what time of year it is, but there's some foliage on here, but it's certainly not green. So I'm back in my green, but I want to neutralize it a bit. Let's see. That's probably still too green, isn't it? Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to introduce a few little elements on these hillsides to kind of determine how the land lies. And as you can see, they're very kind of vague, but they do describe which way these hills are facing and which way they're going. So these are kind of hedgerows. And I'm also going to tentatively try and suggest something on this horizon. And I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we are testing the water. I just put a little test blob there to see what happened, and it's just dispersed too much. So I kind of know that paper's too wet yet to work on the trees. So I'm going to give that a little. I'm going to give that another couple of minutes.
Finally. That's you.
Right. So what I've got in here is I've got kind of a random array of potential foliage. That's what that is. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to join these up. I'm going to try and create some kind of a lattice work of fields. And I'm going to try and paint in some very faint dry stone walls. So back to my old grey again. And I'm going to start just suggesting little traces of walls in the distance like this. You know, these walls very often link up with these trees and hedgerows. Can you see how that starts to describe the form of the hills? It's rather nice. Where are we? 49. Okay. Right, let's have a look at these trees on the horizon. See, it's pointless to try and draw detail. You just want to try and suggest the form. It's almost like just suggesting the value. I think I've gone and let that dry too much now. So what I'm having to do is I'm going in, I'm using my combination of my tree mix and my wall mix. And I'm kind of just putting a few little shapes in. And then I'm kind of drying that off. And I'm just going to try and draw out the paint. I mean, that is a very crude attempt. I think it's a case of just squinting your eyes and just trying to match up the value more than it is making them look like what we think we know trees to look like. See, I've got 4 there. They look too uniform. Even numbers always look a bit crap. You're better off with 3 or 5 or 1. 4 never really looks right. Don't ask me why.
It's the same when you're gardening.
Is it?
Yeah, you should always put in a mixture of odd numbers.
Yeah.
Fibonacci rule.
Is it a
Flower
Fibonacci thing?
arranging.
You should be able to spotlight yourself, Martin, so that we can always see you.
Say that again.
You should be able to spotlight yourself so that we can always see you.
Spotlight? How do you mean?
Yeah, there's a button on here that says spotlight. When
What-
you're in charge, actually.
What can you see now?
Oh, now that you're talking, we can
Yeah.
see your work.
Well, what do you see when I'm not talking?
We see other people.
Do
We
you?
see all of our class, whoever makes a noise.
Oh,
But that's only if you don't pin him. If you
Yes,
pin him,
I think Karen's right, Lynn. I think you have to pin me.
Ah, right. Okay then.
If you go to the top
Where?
left-hand corner of your screen
Yeah.
and touch it, you should come down to switch to gallery view. You see that? Does a little box of squares come
Yeah.
down? If you click on that, you get up all our pictures.
Yeah.
And then if
Speaker
you
view,
find the one
gallery
with,
view.
you find the one with Martin on it, click on it, and it'll have a green line. I'm talking now, but it'll get a green line around it. And then you double click on it and click on pin. Is that
working for you then?
difficult?
No, where do you
Right,
find
there's Martin.
I've got Martin, but
Martin,
I
can you
can't.
make a noise?
Yeah, I can make a noise. I'm assuming that you see my hand, aren't you?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Good.
Right,
And
double,
so you need to be able to watch my hand even when I'm not talking, really.
Yeah,
don't you?
exactly. Yeah.
So is that not happening for
No.
you now?
No.
You're going
no.
back to
No.
whoever's making a noise, are you?
Yeah. So Janet, he's talking.
yeah.
I've got the
So
little I've got
you've got a
speaker
green line
view.
round him.
No, I haven't got a green line around him.
Right, we'll get him to talk again.
Yeah, I can keep talking. I will keep talking until the
There's the green
cows
line
come
round
home.
him.
You got the green line.
Yep, got the green line
You
around
got the-
him.
Okay, so if I'm active and I'm green lined, you
Yeah.
need to do what? You need to
Right
find a
click.
little menu and pin me
No,
or something. don't you?
While I'm talking, I know you'll see me again,
Yeah.
but you have to you can try it on me. You could double click on me.
Yep.
And down will come a menu of 2. And one will say pin.
Oh, replace pin. So Martin, give us some.
Okay, so if I start talking now and you replace pin? Do you actively have to pin me now, do you? Is that working for you? Testing, 1, 2, 3, running out of things to say. I'm mixing up
Okay,
a little
yeah.
green here.
I got Lynn full screen.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
We all got to watch you now, Lynn. How's everybody else getting on? Does anybody else have the same trouble as Lynn? Do your views keep popping to whoever's making a
I
noise?
did have right at the start, but since I cracked it.
Okay. All
But
right.
now I've got this.
Okay. So where are you now then, Lynn? You see
Well,
me now?
I'm practicing. You.
You can see me
I can see you now because you're nattering.
because I'm talking, but as soon as somebody else makes a noise,
Yeah, and
I
just
go.
now
go.
when I pinned it just said
Yeah.
unpin. Well,
Okay,
Well, click on that.
I want you
Yeah.
pinned, don't I?
You
I'm
do
very-
want me
If it-
pinned,
if-
really?
If
Pinned.
it's
There,
in
got
the-
him.
Yeah.
Done it.
You done me?
Put it-
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done.
You can explain
see-
it to me later then.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Exchange numbers and sort it out. So what
Yeah.
I'm doing now is, look, I'm putting in a little bit of darker value underneath these trees. You see, we're putting these trees, and I've just mixed up a bit more green. These are flat shapes, but as soon as I start to put a little bit of extra value at the base, they kind of slowly turn into 3-dimensional forms, which is what we want, really. And again, if I just want to soften off, because we are masters of the soft edge technique, just wash my brush, dry, take off the excess water, and then just draw it along that top edge like that. That really does help create the illusion of a 3-dimensional form. These will dry a little bit lighter. So Janet, your hills on the hillside there, I was feeling my way, but it's just
okay.
a little hint of a
Yes.
few little marks.
It is.
And you don't want to make them too prominent at all.
No. Well, I haven't put any hedgerows or walls in at all on the
Oh.
on the hill.
Oh, okay.
I can't do it.
What do you mean you can't do it?
Well, when I did it, it just looked far too blobby, so I've smoothed them
Well,
out.
persevere, don't
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when you first do things, you think, oh God, what have I done? That's rubbish. But it very often isn't.
Yes.
Very often isn't.
When you
Give it a
come back.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is nice. What I do here, I've just made up a little bit of yellow because, different things grow in different fields. So I've just got a very pale yellow, I'm just going to muddied it. Just got a pale yellow glaze. I'm running out of pigment. Pale yellow glaze. I'm just going to pop in, just going to glaze over the odd field with a different colour like that. And you see that suddenly we've got a little rapeseed scene going on in there.
Oh, isn't that clever?
Isn't that nice? Yeah, and,
I
and
love
maybe,
it.
maybe over here.
I doubt whether it'd be a crop on the pig.
Oh, all right, Karen. All right.
You're just being picky now, aren't you?
No, it's clever clothes.
Okay.
We could do purple and it would look like heather.
Yes.
Yeah.
A
I
field
think
full of
that'd be
heather.
nice.
Wrong time of year.
Or what you can do is you can get a bit of a brown thing going, like a nice soil colour, and do a little ploughed field. So if let's try maybe.
Yeah, that's lower
Are we
down.
allowed
That's
to have a
better.
ploughed field, do you think?
Well, yeah.
It could have been muck spreading.
It could have been much spreading, yeah.
Sorry.
Or in my case, I might have just done a blob of brown and need to cover it up.
Yeah, could have. And then if you get really cocky, you can maybe do a ploughed field. And let's see.
Ooh,
Okay, come on.
Wow.
stripes. I like
No, Karen, ploughed field, not
Oh,
stripes.
sorry. No, I was just thinking I like my lawn to look stripy when I've mowed it.
All right, okay.
Or
So it's
should I say
slow.
my moss? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm the same. I've got a lot of moss. So it's starting to come together. Can you see it's starting to get a bit of form and a bit of details really brought these hills to life. We've got to get something going on in this far range of hills here. I think probably what won't look so good is a black pencil line on the top of a very pale range of hills. So I'm just going to take that back a bit and get a pale wash in there. And it's, look at that. It's almost the same color as the sky. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of my old sky color here. What's left of it? And maybe just put in, and I think it'll show up because it's going to have a hard edge. And it's going to have a hard edge because I'm painting it on a dry surface.
Martin, I've got to go.
Oh, all right then, Karen. No mind.
I've had my hair done for the first time in 5 months.
Congratulations.
So. All right. Thanks very much.
No worries, Karen. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
week.
Bye.
And you. Do you know that kind of doesn't need much more than that, does it? That little bit of blue in there is kind of there, isn't it? So, running over time again. I'm going to quickly get some action in this meadow down the front here. I mean, with hindsight, and we've scooted through this. I've got a bit of a dead zone here. I ought really to have had a bit of wall going in there to define that edge, but apart from that, I'm quite pleased with this. I think this is looking quite good. What I will do is just quickly get something in here. So that green's got a bit muddy. So let me just clean up a bit of space. And I'm just going to get the old cadmium yellow in again. A bit of, what was it? Prussian blue, wasn't it? Just to get that green into gear. It's already gone a bit over, a little heavy-handed with the blue there. never mind. It's easily done. Oh, I've got brown contaminating my yellow again. So, right, yeah, quick dash into here with the old credit card and the scratchy stick standing by. So, washing this in with some this is my close-up meadow scenario. I've gone in with a nice wash like that. And I'm just going to try and make it interesting by roughing it up a little bit. Lots of kind of few vertical lines. A few instant seed heads. And just some interesting things in the foreground. Getting a bit violent with it actually. I'm scratching into my wall. It kind of doesn't need much more than that. So I'm just blasting in with a few blobs of colour like that. And it's also always a nice idea when you're doing a landscape, if possible, if at all possible, just get a little bit of red in there somewhere. I know I've got a nice blush on my rusty tin roof there, which is lovely. This is all a bit cool, a bit cold. That bit of red on there is playing an important part in this picture. Red always cheers a place up. Always worthwhile putting a bit of red in. Just thinking this cloud field. Just going to put a few plough lines in there. So I'm going to get a red going, not hideously bright red. Just a few little suggestions, maybe some poppy heads or something like that. Don't want to overpower it. But that's not far off done. Might be tempted to just put a few details in this very distant hill here, like we've got here. But it is a tiny little thing, and I could probably just do it with the very palest of washes. Just a few little hints just to indicate that it isn't just a distant glacier or
James.
something. It's
For James.
That'll dry off a little bit lighter, but it's just giving it a bit of form. Maybe. Yeah, see, that's nice. It was a little bit too icy before, and just dropping in a few little hints of tone have just broken that up. Just giving it a bit of detail. Now, I know I've scooted through this. I hope I haven't left you all bewildered and behind. But you can always have a look at it later, and I'll try and get it posted by the end of the day or first thing tomorrow. I never actually went and did my final pass on the wall. The wall is still waiting for its shadows. So yeah, a few little carefully placed deep shadows on the wall, and I think this is kind of done. We'll get that in. That's quite an important little feature, that shadow from the barn. It tells you where the light's coming from. It just throws, makes everything, suddenly, isn't it? You suddenly put a shadow in and the sun comes out.
Mm.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. But shoot, get cracky. But that was nice. I enjoyed that. I hope you've got something out of that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a very pleasant little trip up north. Right. Where's my...
Martin, thank you very much. Enjoyed that.
Me too, Mike. Thank you for being there. Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
rest of the day, everybody. It's the last lesson of the term next week.
Oh my lord.
I know, and I was thinking we might have a little bit of a break because I think the sun's it's slowly starting to warm up. I'm going to have a break for a bit, but I'll keep you all in the loop. And in a few weeks' time, if we fancy picking up where we've left off, I'll let you know. Well, you'll be the first to know. You kind of, my inner sanctum of existing students will be the first to know when we resume, and I'll be letting you know of things happening in Lunds as well, if anybody of you are interested.
Oh, right, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Have a
See you
lovely
next.
weekend.
See you
And you
next
too,
week.
everybody. See you all
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thanks, Martin.
Bye.
Bye, you all. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.